If there's a public comment, I'd like the opportunity to respond as appropriate. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Before we go to Mr. Sweetapple, I say, Mr. Sweetapple, before you jump up, I'm going to have the city clerk do a formality that she has to do. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Pursuant to Ordinance 2009-006, City of Deerfield Beach Code of Ethics, the applicant's representatives made the following campaign contributions. Alisajo, Inc., $500 to Commissioner Preston on February 6, 2023. Suprema, Inc., $1,000 to Commissioner Ben Preston on February 8, 2023. Tag LC, $500 to Commissioner Preston on February 8, 2023. Arthur Salvin, $500 to Commissioner Hudak in January 2023. Jane Slavin, $500 to Commissioner Hudak in January 2023. Greenspoon Martyr LLP, $500 to Commissioner Preston on February 9th, 2023. Equity Land Title LLC, $500 to Commissioner Preston on February 9th, 2023. Greenspoon Martyr LLP, $500 to Commissioner Hudak on November 21st, 2022. Equity Land Title LLC, $500 to Commissioner Hudak on November 21st, 2022. Greenspoon Martyr LLP, $500 to Commissioner Parnez on January 19th, 2021. Equity Land Title LLC, $500 to Commissioner Parnez on January 19th, 2021. Greenspoon Martyr LLP, $500 to Vice Mayor Drosky on December 30th, 2020. And Equity Land Title LLC, $500 to Vice Mayor Drosky on December 30th, 2020. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sweetapple.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Robert Sweetapple, 4800 North Federal Highway, Boca Raton, Florida. I'm here tonight on behalf of Richard George. His address is 203 Northeast 8th Street or 8th Terrace, Deerfield Beach, Florida. I came here originally to just apprise you of one impropriety and one illegality. And while I sat here, I got to observe 3 or 4 to my amazement. First of all, you noticed this hearing as ordinance to vote on the ordinance, and you didn't notice it as a quasi-judicial hearing, which is required when you're changing zoning. So that was improper. That's why I came here to tell you that. I already told the city attorney that, so he properly let you know, hey, this isn't right. We've got to notice a quasi-judicial hearing. Oh, and by the way, we're going to do that later. So we're telling you that we're going to issue a notice, but there is no notice yet for a quasi-judicial hearing. And then I heard my esteemed colleague, Mr. Neely, get up here and put on his quasi-judicial presentation to you. And he just said something about the next hearing. We haven't had a properly noticed first hearing, but you just let someone come in who's seeking relief from you and put on an entire presentation without any notice. And then you heard what I'm going to respectfully use the word nonsense to describe to you how he's got a pending application on behalf of his client for Live Local. And somehow that's still pending as a threat, while there's another application pending to rezone. And he's also telling you how bad that's going to be, but he could also do what B2 provides and a shopping center. So now there's another use that's a threat to you to show you how this is better for you financially, traffic, which is totally irrelevant. All you have to look at is your own code to know why all of that, as I say, is nonsense. This is an attempt to rezone property from B2 to a planned development district, and also from a residential designation to a planned development district. What does your code require? Well, section 98.668A requires that the lot have, quote, unique property considerations that would prevent the property from being developed under the existing zoning.
Would you like another minute, Mr. Sweetapple?
I would like to have the same amount of time as Mr. Mealy because he shouldn't have even been speaking to you. He had a right to.
So I'll deny the minute then for you then.
I would
Mr.
like.
Attorney,
I'd
City
like.
Attorney, I'll let you opine. We're going to pause and we'll decide whether we can give you an extra minute.
I would like equal time because
Thank-
Mr. Mealy should have been here
Thank you.
under public comments. You should not have listened to an applicant
Thank you,
and an
Mr.
unnoticed quasi.
Mr. Sweetapple. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Tonight is not the quasi judicial public hearing. We need to notice it accordingly. But it's up to the commission whether you want to give Mr. Sweetapple more time tonight. If he's representing an interested party as part of the quasi judicial proceeding, he would get more than the traditional 3 minutes as part of our quasi judicial proceeding.
Did we follow the proper notice and the accusations that Mr. Sweetapple's making?
So I don't know if Mr. Sweetapple is making the accusation that at every reading you need to have a quasi judicial public hearing. That's not my opinion, but it's certainly subject to a quasi judicial public hearing. And I also want to make sure that everybody has notice for that hearing, hence why we're setting that notice today so that the appropriate notices can go out, including the mailed notices within 500 feet of the property.
It was what we just heard from Mr. Mealy, a quasi judicial.
Not in my opinion.
Thank you. Go ahead and continue,
Yep.
Mr. Sweetapple.
You just made your ex parte disclosures only required at a quasi-judicial hearing. You should be having a first reading only, no vote. You say you're having a vote, and you just asked the applicant to give you a presentation,
We didn't ask him to
even
do
though there's, and he came up and gave you a presentation, and he referred to the next hearing. So all of this that just happened, and I have a court reporter, is illegal. I don't know why why did you make ex parte, and your ex parte disclosures are not just money you were given by the applicant and all his agents. It's every communication the mayor's had with residents, with lobbyists, with anyone that has an interest. So at the time we actually have a quasi-judicial hearing, that's what you're supposed to do. I sat here and watched a presentation with no notice. I watched argument with no notice. I watched you all make a pretend quasi-judicial disclosure. And I'm telling you, under your ordinance, there's absolutely no basis. This property can be developed. You can't spot zone. You can't take something that's zoned commercial and then come in and say, oh, we'd like to make it residential. And if we don't, you're going to get live local or you're going to get a
I'm
shopping center.
going to give you the time to complete your thought.
Thank you very much. You cannot just on a piece of property, and with the standard you would have to show there's an impossibility because of some condition on the land to develop it. Here you just have someone that wants to change their zoning from commercial to residential to make more money. That's not what zoning does. And all of the residents around have a right to object to it and to require due process. And Snyder requires that when you do these types of things, you give notice you're going to have a quasi-judicial hearing, then you have a quasi-judicial hearing. And all you do if you have an ordinance is you read it and then you go forward. But your first notice should say this is a quasi-judicial matter, so residents have an opportunity to prepare. And you should not be taking testimony or getting lobbied or being presented with the presentation from the owner until there is swearing in. Mr. Mealy got up here and gave you his whole presentation. He has to be sworn to do that in a quasi-judicial hearing. So everything that's happened tonight has been improper and illegal. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, you want to opine?
A couple things. So the disclosure that the clerk read was not part of the quasi-judicial hearing ex parte disclosure. It was pursuant to the city's ethics ordinance that requires her to do that disclosure. I can assure Mr. Sweetapple at the quasi-judicial hearing that will be properly noticed, that instruction will be given regarding ex parte communication, and have the commission make the appropriate disclosures at that hearing. Again, tonight is not the quasi-judicial proceeding. If you move it forward tonight, it would be scheduled for December 3rd. And
Right.
everybody would have notice of that, the same notice that Mr. Sweetapple is complaining that people don't have for tonight. We want to make sure they have it for the actual quasi-judicial proceeding. Hence, if you move this item forward tonight, set the quasi-judicial public hearing on December 3rd, the appropriate notices would go out. So everybody would be on notice that a quasi-judicial proceeding would take place on December 3rd.
Mr. Sweetapple, can I ask you a question? If I open it to the public and if the public's allowed to comment on the item, is the applicant not allowed to comment on the item?
What you did, sir, is I represent a property owner in your town, and when I spoke and I got to 3 minutes, you shut me right up. You invited Mr. Mealy, who has actually represented me in the past, and I have the greatest respect for, to come up as the
shows.
applicant. You announced, well, I do as a professional, but what he's trying to do is illegal, and my job is to point that out. You invited him up as the applicant, and he went on for over 10 minutes presenting not only his argument about this application, but showing you why some other pending.
So we understand that. I was here for that. Yeah, I get that. My question for
Did he
you
speak
is,
as a member of the public, or did he speak as an applicant, sir?
I believe he spoke as an applicant.
Right, so.
Right. So
then
that
why-
the rules
why do
are-
we have
and
an
you're not an
applicant?
applicant, are you?
Why do we have an applicant when there's no quasi-judicial hearing tonight?
Okay.
Why is the applicant here speaking? What if I wouldn't have been here? You're telling me that applicants are coming in when there's not a judicial, when the proceeding's supposed to be quasi-judicial, and you're hearing from him? Can I go see a judge and just walk in and say, okay, I want to put on my case now? I'm going to do it next Tuesday, but can I pre-try the case for you so that you believe my story more?
Okay.
Why did you give him 10 minutes? He spoke as an applicant. Why are you giving these people all of this special
These people,
consideration?
the applicant, why did we treat the applicant like an applicant? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm talking, well, the applicant appears to be more than one person, because I heard a number of companies and people who've contributed money. So when I say that, I'm saying, whoever, all the interests that you've disclosed under your ethics law, for some reason, and I'm not suggesting any wrongdoing, I'm just suggesting there's been favoritism here, because we don't have a quasi-judicial hearing tonight. You invited the applicant up. His attorney came.
Can you
up
speak
with
in the mic, please?
His
Stop looking
attorney
back.
came up without being sworn. He put on his whole case. He then told you all of his threats. He told you why this is better. And he forced me to come up and actually rebut based on your law, which couldn't be any clearer. If you can develop a piece of property and there's nothing on the property itself that prevents you from developing it, you can't change the zoning to PDD. The dog park, you take the house down, it becomes a dog walking area. It doesn't have to become PDD to put your pooch there, okay? And this can be a B2 commercial development. He's already told you he can do live local. He's already told you it can be developed live local. Your own staff has found that it can be too. Your own staff didn't even mention your own code prohibition. Didn't even mention it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
And I look forward to presenting this to you.
During the quasi-judicial hearing that would all
We
be
actually
noticed
have
for.
one noted.
Yes,
Yes,
during
we
that real
actually
one.
have one.
Yes, thank you.
Thank God I was here to object to notice.
Yeah, thank God you were here. Any comments on that?
The only final comment I'll make is, I try to make it clear in the record so the public knew, everybody knew here, that the testimony and evidence presented at the quasi-judicial public hearing is what the city commission should consider when they make their decision. So I wanted everybody to know that, so that if you come up and you give public comment tonight and you walk away thinking it's going to be considered on the record, I wanted to make it clear, and I think I encourage you even to come back at the December 3rd meeting to make that comment.
I think I tried to clarify that as well, but apparently that wasn't heard. So,
Understood.
thank you.
You need a motion?
Was it?
Any comment by anyone?
Excuse me, don't stand up. Thank you.
You need a motion, Bill?
No, I'm gonna look for guidance from the city attorney to make sure that we're doing everything proper. We can open it up to the public now, right?
You can. You take an action on the item to move it forward, and generally Florida law requires if you're going to take action on an item, the public has the ability to comment.
Right. So if we were to move this forward, does that mean no one's allowed to talk about what exactly is being presented? We just move something forward? Is that what we're supposed to do? Because usually that's kind of the way it works, is that we kind of get an explanation of what's being presented, right?
You usually get an explanation of what's being presented.
Right. Okay. So I think we probably heard arguments on both sides a little bit from there. So